Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. In tonight's session, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Adhan and the Iqamah and mention some of the meanings of what it is that we say in either, in terms of the supplications, etc. Previously mentioned, we noted that it is recommended to silently repeat after the Adhan and the Iqamah. It's also recommended to make dua after the Adhan, as well as the Iqamah. Repeating after the Adhan and the Iqamah is typically referred to as responding to it, and you're basically just saying what is said by the Mu'adhin or the Muqim. There are, however, a few exceptions, as was previously stated. We're going to look at one or two of those this evening. The first of those exceptions is when the mu'adhin, he says hayya ala salah and also hayya ala al-falah. Basically, it could be roughly translated as come to prayer, come to success. And after these two phrases, the one that hears them, the listener, says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And some have added al-Ali al-Azim. So you would say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-Ali al-Azim. So this is based on a narration which is collected by Imam al-Tabarani, which states that when the Prophet ﷺ heard the Adhan, he would say what was said. Basically, whatever the mu'adhin said, he repeated until he reached hayya ala salah and hayya ala al-falah, and would say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. So that addition there, it is reported in some collections of hadith. But obviously what's well known is the initial part of it. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And this is known as al-hawqala. That's where they take a one letter from each word, basically, and they make a word that which represents the entire phrase. These phrases, hayya ala salah and hayya ala al-falah, they are essentially a call toward piety and away from sin. A call toward piety, come to prayer, come to success. And come to piety, come to success, of course, is not only embarking upon righteous deeds, but also abandoning sin and transgression. And so, repeating after these words, when the mu'adhin says, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, to repeat them is to repeat a call, and it's considered pointless. It's not like the other remembrances, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. It's not like the other adhkar, which are praising and extolling and venerating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, in response, the listener says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And there is a very beautiful meaning to these words, and that's what we want to discuss tonight, to hopefully take away some of the spiritual secrets, if you will, or inner dimensions of the things that we say during and after the event. So to begin, this phrase, la hawla, means, the word hawla means tahawwala. It's another Arabic word which means to change, to shift, or to transform. To change or shift from something or transform into something. Basically from one state or condition to another. That is la hawla, meaning there is no changing or shifting or transforming from one state, condition, or another. Wala quwwata. Here, quwwa, we could say, is strength or power. It means qudra, or capacity, ability. And this, of course, in reference to the context of this phrase, is the capacity to change from one state to another. And then it's ended with illa billah. Illa billah means except with Allah, because after all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all things. He creates our capacity, He creates our ability, and of course He creates our actions. And when that is said, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, it is an acknowledgement that we are incapable of piety and incapable of avoiding sin except with the blessing of Allah. And so essentially what we're doing is not only acknowledging that, but essentially asking for capacity to change and make a positive transformation. When we are called in the Adhan, Hayya ala salah, come to prayer, Hayya ala al-falah, we are asking essentially, first acknowledging that we are incapable of responding to that call towards piety and away from sin, unless Allah Azza wa Jal blesses us with the means to make such a shift and transformation. This phrase is a confession that we are powerless and therefore we are in need of Allah. And we seek His assistance in all things, not just prayer, but in all things we ask Allah to assist and to help us, to grant us success. And this is the absolute essence of true servitude, to make such a confession and acknowledgement, to seek assistance in all things. This is servitude. The great Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was quoted to have said, La hawla an ma'siyatillah illa bi'ismatillah. There is no shift away from sin without the preservation of Allah. The preservation of Allah. You should notice here, isma. It's interesting because ma'siyah and isma, they have many of the same letters. Ma'siyah, isma. Isma is like being ma'soom, as the Prophet ﷺ was. And so, Ibn Mas'ud says, there's no shift away from sin without the preservation of Allah. And وَلَا قُوَّةَ عَلَى طَاعَتِهِ إِلَّا بِمَعُونَتِهِ. There is no ability to obey Him without His assistance, the assistance of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so that is, in essence, what it means when a person says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So perhaps now you might be a little more eager to repeat after the adhan and to say those words, especially here, understanding a little bit of the deeper meanings of this phrase, al-hawqala. The next thing we're going to look at briefly is the supplication which is said after the adhan. Supplication, of course, we mentioned previously, as did the author in the book. He says, Allahumma rabba hadhihi ad-da'wati at-tamma wa salati al-qa'ima ati Muhammadan al-wasilata wal-fadila wa ba'athu maqaman mahmudan alladhi wa'adta. And so this is often translated in the following way. O Allah, Lord of this perfect call and established prayer, grant Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the intercession and favor and raise him to the honored station you have promised him. But we're going to make some slight adjustments to that typical translation based on the meanings of the dua according to our great imams min al-Hanabila. So of course this is based on a hadith collected by Imam Muslim. And this hadith which states, if you hear the muadhin say what he says and then send prayers upon me, for whoever sends prayers upon me, meaning salat and salam, he says, man salla alayya, whoever prays upon me, once Allah will send prayers upon them 10 times. Follow that by asking Allah to grant me al-wasila. Al-wasila. Okay? Now in the supplication, it says, Ati Muhammadan al-wasilata wal-fadilata. Okay? And so that was automatically translated as grant Muhammad the intercession and favor. He says the wasila is a station in Jannah which should not be for anyone other than one of Allah's servants, and I hope that I am the one. And this is the Prophet ﷺ saying this to his companions. Whoever asks Allah to grant me al-wasila will be granted the intercession. So what it appears is that the translation has done a 1 + 1 = 2 kind of a thing. So the wasila if you ask Allah to grant the Prophet ﷺ al-Wasila, then you will be granted intercession. And so therefore we will say, Ati Muhammadan al-Wasila, to give al-Wasila, and by default, the intercession. So looking at it one step at a time, Allahumma, when we say that, this is often what we say when we begin supplications. It means, Ya Allah. And in this phrase, Allahumma, the meme at the end, Allahumma, is in place of the Ya, which is called harfun nida, which is basically like when you're trying to alert someone to something or call upon someone. Oh Allah is how it's often translated. And we're getting ready to make a supplication, by the way, which is promised, as you note in the supplication itself. Alladhi wa'adta, which you have promised. We're going to make a supplication which has been promised. So what's the point in making the supplication if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised it? Because when Allah promises something, He makes a wa'ad, it will therefore be certain. What's the point of even making such a supplication? The point is to proclaim, to announce the status and lofty position of the Prophet ﷺ. And every time we make the supplication after the Adhan is called, we are making this prayer. We understand to have been a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore it will happen. But in doing so, we are acknowledging the elevated status of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in it, Allahumma rabba hadhi da'wat at-tamma, this perfect call, a da'wah, right? This is a da'wah, it's an invitation. It's tamma. Tam means complete. And of course, the perfect call is referring to the Adhan. Allahumma rabba hadhi da'wat at-tamma, Lord of this perfect call, this complete call. And it has been described as such because the Adhan comprises of Allah's remembrance. We know Allahu Akbar, to the various other phrases that are said. It comprises of Allah's remembrance and also a call to obedience with Hayya ala salah and Hayya ala al-falah. And these things, the remembrance of Allah and the call to obedience, a call away from sin, are affairs of the hereafter, and therefore deserving of such a description, meaning they are tam, they are complete, and they are perfect, because that's the nature of the umur al-ukhrawiyya, which are like affairs and issues of the hereafter, as opposed to everything else, which are affairs of the world. The affairs of the world, which are al-umur al-dunyawiyya, the lowly matters, they're subject to imperfection and corruption. Also, this perfect call, the Adhan, it contains the call to Tawheed, La ilaha illallah. And this is the call of truth and the most perfect phrase. When the mu'adhin calls, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and then the listener, they say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, this entire process contains this kalimat, at-tawheed, the perfect phrase. And so the call is therefore referred to as the perfect call. It says established prayer, was-salat al-qa'imah. Was-salat al-qa'imah is the established prayer. It's referring to the prayer that's getting ready to be performed. It's going to be performed and made as a form of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next part is Ati Muhammadan al-Wasilata. Grant Muhammad al-Wasila. So Ati is like A'ti. That's kind of what that means, is to give. Muhammad al-Wasila. Al-Wasila, which is the highest station in Jannah. It is the station of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dwelling, which is located closest to Al-Arsh, which is the throne of Allah. So that is al-Wasila, the highest station. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if you ask Allah to grant me this wasila, then I will ask of Him on behalf of you, meaning make an intercession. The next thing is al-Fadila. al-Wasilata wal-Fadila, which is what we could say a fadila is a virtue or a favor. And this is either an additional position other than al-Wasila. It's either a different position which is above all the other creatures, meaning a totally different station altogether, or it serves as an explanation of al-Wasila. They go together. Al-Wasila is al-Fadila. It's a favor. It's a virtue. And he says, and raise him to the honored station. وَبْعَثُ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. وَبْعَثُ, this is ba'ath, which means to resurrect him and give him the honored station. مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا, which you have promised him. And of course, this part, al-Maqam al-Mahmud, refers to the Shafa'a al-Udhma, which is the greatest intercession. And of course, that is the sole blessing of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the great intercession. Because there will be others that will be granted intercession, but the great intercession will be that of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and this is what is referred to as وَبْعَثُ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا الَّذِي وَعَدْتَ, this honor and this honorable station. After this supplication is said, so there you get an idea of the meanings of that supplication that's said after the Adhan. After the supplication, is recommended to pray for the well-being in this life and in the next. You're asking Allah for afiyah in this life and the next, and then you make more dua after the Adhan, as well as the Iqamah. The Adhan, obviously, it's based on a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He says supplication between the Adhan and Iqamah are not rejected. This was collected by Imam Ahmad and at-Tirmidhi. It's also recommended to make dua after the Iqamah. This was done by Imam Ahmad himself, and in the process he would raise his hands after the Iqamah, meaning between the Iqamah and the time the Imam begins the prayer. It's also reported that Imam Ahmad himself, after the Adhan of Maghrib prayer, would say the following. He said, Allahumma hadha iqbalu laylik wa idbaru naharik wa aswatu du'atika faghfir li, which basically means, oh Allah, this is the beginning of your night, the passing of your day, and aswatu du'atika, basically the voices of supplication for you, so pardon and forgive me. So this is what Imam Ahmad would say after the Adhan of Maghrib, and this is based on reports that he had. So there you go, a couple of things, a few details, what's said after the Adhan and the Iqamah, responses that are made after each phrase of the Adhan and the Iqamah. Some of them, of course, all of them have meanings and things that we can learn in the future, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, I'm going to leave some of that for later when we circle back to perhaps a more in-depth look at this chapter. More recommendations here to wrap it up is to wait to pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid, or a nafila prayer, when the Adhan is being called. All right, so in the event that you were to come in and the Adhan is being called, you should wait, because it's recommended that you respond to the Adhan. And if you're in prayer, we already said that if you're responding to the Adhan while in prayer, it's likely that you'll invalidate your prayer, especially when you say the phrases La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, or some of the other phrases, if it was during the Iqamah, if you said Aqamaha Allah wa adamaha, for example, that would invalidate the prayer. So what you're going to do is wait, and this, of course, is the exception of this rule, meaning waiting to pray, is for the Jum'ah Adhan. So the Jum'ah Adhan, it's also an Adhan. It's prescribed to repeat after the Adhan. However, in this case, listening to the khutbah is more important than responding to the Adhan. And so if you wait for the Adhan to be called and you're responding to it, and now you have to pray, 2 rak'ahs, rak'atayn, before you sit down for the khutbah. You're going to miss listening to the khatib address the congregation. And so, if you come in and find yourself having entered when the adhan is being called, you should perform 2 expedient rak'ahs, so that you will be finished and prepared to listen to the khatib during the sermon. And that is where we will wrap up, and then when we rejoin, we'll begin talking about the conditions of prayer. Jazakallah khair. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.